Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Today, we are talking about a bipartisan effort to add metachromatic leukodystrophy, often referred to as MLD, to the newborn screening list here in Minnesota. I'd also like to thank Representative Torkelson, Representative Stevenson for being here and helping lead this effort in the Minnesota House. Very much appreciate both you guys. And before we hear from our families and our medical expert who's here today, I'm just going to share a few facts about MLD. According to the Mayo Clinic, MLD is a rare genetic disorder with symptoms that include loss of motor skills like walking, speaking, and swallowing, loss of intellectual thinking and memory skills, loss of the ability to detect sensations like touch, pain, heat, sound, and even loss of vision. According to the Cleveland Clinic, researchers estimate that MLD affects approximately 1 in 40,000 people, making it a very rare disease. There are 3 types of metachromatic leukodystrophy, which are infantile, juvenile, and adult form. And according to brainfacts.org, most children within the infantile form die by the age of 5 years old. And there's currently not a cure for MLD, but there are treatments available to slow the progression of the disease, as well as treatments to manage the symptoms and enhance the quality of life, which is why newborn screening is so important. The benefit of newborn screening is early detection and diagnosis, so treatments can begin before it's too late. It also provides families with information, guidance, and networks of people and medical professionals to help them navigate through an unimaginable situation that has become their new reality. Representative Torkelson, you want to say a few words?
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Paul Torkelson, District 15B. My pleasure to be here supporting this effort. Genetic disorders have such a powerful impact on families, and now we know that technology is advancing in a way that we can address some of these issues, as Senator Miller described, treatment, but also the potential down the road of actual genetic treatments for some of these disorders. It's really important that we as a state recognize how important it is to identify these diseases early in these children's lives, and I'm happy to support it.
We have a number of families here with us today who have experienced MLD firsthand, and we're going to now hear from them, so I'm going to turn it over to Nick and Shanna Quimby.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good morning. My name is Nick Quimby. This is my wife, Shanna, and this is our daughter, Allie. Shanna, Allie, and I are here today to tell you a sad but true story about our late son, Gavin, aka Super Gav. We're also here today to promote adding metachromatic leukodystrophy, or MLD, to newborn screening in Minnesota. Gavin was born February 22nd, 2010, in Winona, Minnesota. He would be 15 on Saturday. Gavin was a handsome, healthy baby with a super chill personality. The guy was pretty cool. At least everyone thought he was healthy at the time. As Gavin grew, he met his milestones, but was always a little slower. It took him longer to learn how to walk. We took him to the doctor to check this out. They told us he would be fine. It would just take time. Gavin eventually started walking, but he always seemed to be a little off balance. Gavin was behind his peers at daycare when it came to running, jumping, and climbing. Though he lagged behind, he was determined to do what the other kids were doing. It just took him a little longer. When Gavin was 3 years old, his daycare provider saw Gavin's physical struggle and thought something was off with him. She encouraged us to see a doctor again. We took her advice, and we were sent to physical therapy, where we met with a physical therapist who told us he just had floppy muscles and needed to play more. The kid played all the time. Again, we were told Gavin was fine and healthy. A month or so after this, Gavin hurt his ankle jumping on the trampoline with Allie. I brought him to his pediatrician the next day. I explained what happened on the trampoline and expressed our concerns about his walking and his poor balance and the stuff that we've been seeing. The doctor agreed when we were referred to a different doctor in La Crosse. The doctor examined Gavin and watched him walk. The doctor immediately believed that there was something neurological going on with Gavin. An MRI was scheduled and appointments were made. While waiting for the MRI date, Gavin was fitted with some leg braces to help him walk. They had his favorite superhero on him, Superman, and these were known as his super legs. On December 20th, 2013, Gavin had his MRI. Later that same day, we met with the neurologist. He showed us Gavin's brain MRI, which showed extensive demyelination of his brain. The neurologist told us that he believed Gavin had a rare, incurable, life-ending disease called metachromatic leukodystrophy. He was told us there was nothing he could do for Gavin, there was no treatments, and that we should take him home. He also told us not to Google it. Of course we did. We were devastated, we were shocked. We took Gavin home and we cried for weeks on end. Though Gavin's neurologist pretty much diagnosed Gavin's disease based off the MRI and how he presented, further testing was needed to confirm the diagnosis. Genetic testing was done on our entire family. Shannon and I are both carriers, and so is Allie. We were also referred to the U of M Masonic Children's Hospital right here, or next door in Minneapolis. There we met with Dr. Orchard and Dr. Miller, no relation to the senator, who confirmed Gavin's MLD diagnosis. They were very optimistic that a stem cell transplant would be helpful for Gavin to stop the disease's progression. This was not a cure. We decided to go through with the procedure because that's all we had. It was scheduled for the first week of August, and this was in 2014. Prior to Gavin's transplant, he was treated like a hero. A coworker and a friend of mine created a whole day dedicated to him. On June 19th, 2014, Super Gav was born. Hundreds of people filled the Winona Senior High School football stadium to watch the Winona High School football team win the state championship. Gavin scored the winning touchdown. He would then go to the local school and save his daycare friends from the burning building. And they finished up the day by catching a bank robber who had stolen his daycare provider's purse. Gavin would become the superhero for the city because he saved the city. He was given the key to the city, and June 19th was forever known in Winona as Super Gav Day. During Gavin's stem cell transplant, Shannon and I lived in a hotel, taking turns, staying in his hospital room. Allie would stay with friends and family. Gavin received a heavy dose of chemo prior to his transplant, which made him sick, lose his hair, get mouth sores, weakened his mobility, and made him immunocompromised. After about a week of chemo, Gavin received his new cells. Gavin did remarkably well with his new cells, and we were discharged to the Ronald McDonald House in Minneapolis by the end of August. Shannon would stay at the Ronald McDonald House with Gavin until late November, while Allie and I would visit on the weekends. Allie had school and I had to go to work. Gavin would go to daily appointments at the hospital with Shanna. During this time, Gavin's immunocompromised self contacted a nasty virus which caused him several hospitalizations, along with graft versus host disease to his lungs. We were able to take Gavin home in November, but he continued to spike fevers, become weaker. He stopped eating and was deteriorating quickly. A feeding tube was placed into Gavin to provide him the appropriate amount of sustenance. In April of 2015, Gavin was admitted to the hospital yet again and placed on continuous oxygen. His lungs were shot. We spent 3 straight months in the hospital with Shanna, and I tag teaming between him and us going to work and being home with Allie. One day, Gavin received a treatment and almost died while I was in the room with him after an adverse reaction. Gavin was rushed to the PICU, where he was stabilized and allowed, and then he was stabilized from there, and after a short time, we were able to go home for about a month. During the time at home, he had to be on oxygen. We had a whole system of oxygen and people coming over, medical supply people. He continued to take his feedings through his G-tube. He couldn't swallow anymore. He had lost his ability to walk and talk. The kid kept fighting, though. Even at his worst, he would put his hand in his ear and make a fighting fist, just like Super Gav did. By August 2015, we were back at the U with Gavin. As his breathing became progressively worse, we met with Gavin's care team and learned what we already knew. Further treatment was delaying the inevitable. No treatment would help him, would cure him, or make the quality of his life any better. It was at this time Shannon and I made the heart-wrenching decision that no parent should ever have to make. We decided to place Gavin on hospice. We brought Gavin home where he wanted to be. Gavin passed away a few weeks later on September 8th, 2015, at the age of 5. No more meds, no more treatments, no more pain. Gavin's sickness and death catapulted us into the rare disease and newborn screening world to ensure no child would have to go through what he ever did. And with that, I leave you with Shanna to talk to you about the newborn screening.
Good morning. Like Nick said, I'm his wife, Shanna Quimby. And after hearing that devastating story, our story about metachromatic leukodystrophy, I'm here to tell you the story of how we're preserving his legacy. While Gavin was in the hospital in the fall of 2014, one of my fellow MLD moms asked me if I'd be willing to work on getting other leukodystrophies on the Minnesota newborn screen. I had no idea what she was talking about, and I didn't even know what a newborn screen was and how it could be life-changing for babies. I quickly learned that if MLD had been on the panel, Gavin's life would have been exponentially different. Nick and I were full of sadness, fear for the future of our son, and rage at this disease, and our emotions needed to be put somewhere. So I asked her, where do we begin? She said to reach out to our local legislation. Nick and I emailed congresspeople in our area and others that we even had a slight acquaintance with. But the congressman that answered our email immediately was Senator Miller, who just happened to be our neighbor. He was very receptive and excited to start this journey with us, and we will be forever grateful for his help. In April of 2015, Senator Miller, Hunter's Hope Foundation, and the Minnesota Department of Health planned to meet with the Newborn Screening Committee to request adding a number of disorders to the screening panel. MLD was not on the list because we did know that it was not ready to be screened. After testifying in front of our friends and families and hearing other family stories of their children, I was determined to fight for those children and their memories. Throughout the next 6 months, Gavin got sicker and eventually died of complications from his disease. While our family was grieving Gavin, the Newborn Screening Committee met and passed what is now called the Super Gav Act to include X-linked adrenoleukodystrophy, ALD, Pompe disease, and MPS I. Since then, the U of M Masonic Children's Hospital has created a renowned leukodystrophy center that babies who have tested positive for ALD in Minnesota can be treated by Drs. Troy Lund and Dr. Paul Orchard swiftly and successfully. Since the Super Gav Act has taken effect in February of 2017, 32 boys and 11 girls have been tested positive for ALD in Minnesota. These baby boys are closely monitored, treated, and given a chance to grow up healthy. The Masonic Children's Hospital has also treated 8 children with pre-symptomatic or low symptomatic MLD children with gene therapy by Dr. Orchard. This treatment is more successful and safer than the bone marrow transplant that Gavin received because he was too far along with this disease to qualify him for gene therapy. Gene therapy is extremely successful with children who are showing little to no symptoms of MLD, which is why the MLD newborn screen is so extremely important. The Masonic Children's Hospital is the only hospital in the country that does this treatment. Gavin started showing signs of MLD at the age of 1 and progressively got worse and worse. If we had known at birth that he was sick, he would have a better chance today of getting earlier treatment. I've seen children treated early with gene therapy because of older siblings with MLD being diagnosed too late and dying. These children were detected early with the screen and are now healthy, thriving with their lives. A life that we had wished that we had had for Gavin, for him to be turning 15 in a few days. MLD moves quickly and devastatingly. For every life-saving treatment, Minnesota has a hospital for the world-renowned MLD treatments. We need the screen to get the babies there early enough so that no other Minnesota parents will ever go through the tragedy of losing their child to MLD. Thank you.
All right, next we'll welcome up Laura Alberts to share her story.
Hi, my name is Laura Alberts, and my youngest son, Thomas, again, I have 2 other children, Emily and Max. At the age of 1, Thomas was, not walking, and the pediatrician said, he's the 3rd child, just give him some chance, give him a little bit of time. Well, we waited about 6 more months, and still the same thing. He wasn't even really walking around furniture, and he couldn't really put himself into a stand. And so we went back to our pediatrician, and they said, okay, kind of the same story, go to a PT. So we went to physical therapy, right? So we did probably a couple of months of physical therapy. He got fitted for some AFOs to help out with his ankles, and finally the physical therapist said, I actually think you need to go see a neurologist. I think there's something more than just low tone and from a muscle standpoint. So then we started the path down of seeing the neurologist. The neurologist said, well, let's do an MRI. So we had an MRI in March. Thomas was 2 years old. And unfortunately, we had that MRI, and his brain didn't show the striping at that point in time. And so they just said, well, let's do a few more tests and kind of see what's going on. And we went through the gamut of tests. The kid was poked and prodded, and as a 1 to 2 year old, it was very, very difficult. His older brother Max went to all those appointments with me, and he will never forget them because it was the trauma of having him poked and prodded, and he said it didn't feel good, right? I mean, he cried and he was uncomfortable. So we finally then did go down to the Mayo Clinic. We'd had a genetic test done down there. They thought it was CMT, Charcot-Marie-Tooth syndrome, which is a peripheral nerve disease. And we got the results in late August that was came back negative. So then it was back to the drawing board again. So finally they said, let's come in, let's do another, go to Children's, and let's do another MRI and EMG. And so at September 25th, he was diagnosed with Metachromatic Leukodystrophy. And again, we didn't know what it meant. They also said, don't go to Google. Of course, we went to Google. And I remember coming home from the hospital that day, and Thomas is sitting on the floor, and he has the brightest smile on his face. Like it was the happiest kid, and not knowing what's going on, but he had the smile, and we were all devastated, right? So we're crying, we're trying to put on a good face, and it just, because it was one of those things that the doctor had said, go home, make him comfortable. Again, we had to do the urine test to validate that it was in fact MLD, and it came back, and that was positive. Thomas, again, he was about 2 years old when he was diagnosed, and so we kind of they said, go home and make memories, right? No one ever wants to hear that, go home and make memories, because there is no hope for your child. So we made sure we called, Make-A-Wish Minnesota. We made sure we could go to Disney World and give him that opportunity. And so we did, and he eventually had a feeding tube put in. He was on a multitude of medicines, and it was one of those things, just how do you keep him comfortable? As he grew, we had to titrate on the medicines to make sure there was enough to keep him comfortable. So we did, and we were in and out of the hospital. We would go into the PICU, and one of the worst times I think we went in to the emergency room, and Thomas, the ER doctors came out and said, well, are we going to resuscitate him? My husband and I had not even thought about that at that point in time. Again, he had just been kind of diagnosed in September. It was February of the following year, and that was one of the scariest moments. Like, this is reality. Like, he is not going to be with us very long. And unfortunately, again, he was too far along to do anything from a bone marrow transplant. Thomas's disease progressed really quickly. So we did have great memories with him. Ultimately, he turned 4 in May of 2000. I gotta think about this. May of 2011, and so we had a family we came over. We celebrated his birthday. I will tell you, and this was known in hindsight, but we celebrated his birthday 4 times when he was 4 years old, not knowing that that was going to be our last birthday with him. But thank goodness that we did to make those memories. In October, we had a bunch of family over. We went out to an apple orchard. We had a really great day with family and Thomas. And that evening, he decided it was time to go home. So again, we knew it was probably coming at some point in time, but it's like he knew we had a family there to take care of us. And so he passed away, and we were devastated. We think about him daily. And so this is, it's a remarkable opportunity. Medicine has come a long way since then. And I think we need to take this great opportunity and put this on the newborn screening so no family ever has to hear, go home and make memories with your child. This is something that they have the gene therapy, which again, if we were given that opportunity and we knew that Thomas had MLD, we would have taken it. We for sure would have taken it to have even just one extra day with him.
All right, next we will welcome Erica and Ava Barnes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator Miller. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Erica Barnes, and I am the Executive Director of the Minnesota Rare Disease Advisory Council, which is actually an executive branch state agency that we have created in the state of Minnesota. It was a bipartisan effort, but I just have to say Senator Miller was a huge champion of doing that work. And sadly, the story of metachromatic leukodystrophy is a story of a great number of rare diseases. There are about 10,000 rare diseases, and many of them, these barriers and these devastating outcomes are the story of many families. But science has come a tremendous way since all of us that lost our children. Right now, with the ascendancy of gene therapy and genetic testing, things that were out of reach of medicine even a decade ago when we lost our daughter are now within the reach of medicine. And right here in the state of Minnesota, we're doing some amazing things. But I do want to take off my executive director hat and put on my mom hat, because I'm also the mother of Chloe Barnes, who passed away from MLD in 2010. And when I was thinking about what I could share today, I want to share something that I wrote right after Mother's Day in 2015. Mother's Day came and went, and with it the familiar struggle to find a label for myself. I like definitions for things. Labels are comforting and secure. Call it a personality trait, but I often feel if I could just find a word that describes the person I've become since losing my daughter, I would somehow be able to own that title and act the way whatever the word is acts. I once heard a person say that we can find titles for all kinds of loss. A woman who loses her husband is a widow. A man who loses his wife is a widower. A child who loses his or her parent is an orphan. But so the argument went, the loss of a child is so deep and painful that humanity has not been able to find a word for it. Maybe that's true. But in the years since losing Chloe, I have come to a different conclusion for why we haven't found a special title for a person who loses a child. Chloe was a spunky, beautiful, curly-headed 2-year-old with a life full of breathless wonder ahead of her. My husband Philip and I had already woven more hopes and dreams for her future than I could count. When she was diagnosed with a terminal degenerative neural disease called metachromatic leukodystrophy and only a slim chance at a treatment, my husband and I did what any young parents would do for their baby. We fought like hell to save her life or ensure that she would have the best quality of life possible. And we adjusted our expectations as best we could. With every new piece of nightmarish diagnosis, we tried to shift our parental paradigm to whatever her future might look like. My God, Chloe might not be able to dance at her own prom. I just want her to be able to walk with a walker. Okay, I just want her to be able to walk at all. Okay, the disease is going to cause intellectual impairment. I just want her to graduate from high school. I just want her to be able to talk a little, maybe express her basic wants and needs. I just want my baby to live. I just want my baby to die without too much pain. The week that Chloe lay in hospice, I packed up all but a few of her clothes, toys, and furniture, and I took them to a center that houses women who are struggling with addiction and their children. I paused to stare blankly at a tiny new coat that she had never even worn. In the anticipation that is second nature to a parent, I had bought her the coat ahead of winter. This is what parenting is: countless acts of caring for our children, tangible acts of love and protection. Thinking ahead for them, how would this coat accomplish the purpose that I as a parent had intended for it? I knew the hard answer in this new existence of mine: by being worn by another little girl who needed it. That day, a journey to find a new way to parent Chloe began. A couple of days before Chloe died, Philip and I sat beside her bed and we made her this sacred promise. We promised her that we would do all the good in the world that we were meant to do, as well as all the good that she would have done if she had lived. This promise has been a driving force in our lives ever since, and it has crystallized choice after choice for us. While it requires honesty on our part and a constant reassessing of our own emotional health to stay grounded, it is our parenting paradigm, and that is why we stand here today. In 2014, Philip and I founded Chloe's Fight Rare Disease Foundation, whose mission it was to fund research that finds treatments for rare and underfunded diseases. And we dreamed that someday MLD would be added to the newborn screening panel so that no other family had to experience the horrible diagnostic journey and loss that we did. We are often called heroes, but we are not. We make the choice to tirelessly raise money, ceaselessly advocate, obsessively research for the reason that all moms and dads make their choices, so that at the end of the day, we could lay our heads down on our pillows and call ourselves what we all want to be called: good parents. When MLD is added to the newborn screen, I say when, it's added to the newborn screen, if our name is never mentioned, we will not care. Somehow Chloe will know, and we will have done our job for her. You see, parenting does not end when your child dies. I am and ever will be the mother of Chloe Sophia Barnes. So back to the assertion that society cannot find a word for a person who lost a child. I believe society has the word. The word is parent. Please, let's add MLD to the newborn screen. Sweetheart. And this is my daughter. Ava is going to read something. Nora is a little girl who is living with MLD right now. And sadly, Nora and her mom can't get out because Nora is wheelchair bound. She's on a trach and she's on a vent. But Asa wanted to share a little bit about Nora so that they could be with us in spirit. Go ahead, sweetheart.
This is a message from Nora Safi, resident in Arden Hills. Hello, I am Nora. I'm not here today and I cannot speak, but I asked a friend to tell you all about me. I am from Minnesota and I am almost 9 years old.
Finished, sweetheart? I have an older sister and a younger sister. I also have MLD since the age of 2. I loved my Mounds View teachers, going on bike rides, on Rice Creek trails, and watching Elmo. But now I can no longer move or talk or eat, and I can't go to school anymore. My teacher, Julie, and my hospice nurse come to my home to help me get dressed, get fed through a tube, and read me stories. My mom told me that there is a new therapy that will cure children like me when they are still babies, but we need to find them. My mom and dad didn't know that I had MLD when I was born, and they wish they could have saved me. I wish I could have had a normal life without pain. I know I'm going to have a short life, but I want my life to matter. Please pass newborn screening so that other Minnesota children and their families have a chance to live their life fully. And this is Nora, as told through the eyes of her mother, Asa. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those stories to all of our families. Philip, thank you for being here also for your support. Next, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Isengart, who's going to talk, share some thoughts as a clinical expert and doctor who is very familiar with MLD and the work that they're doing at the University of Minnesota.
Thank you very much. It's really my great pleasure and honor to be here on such an important occasion and to hear these incredible, powerful stories, which are unfortunately not unfamiliar to me. So I'm Dr. Julie Isengart. I'm an associate professor and pediatric neuropsychologist at the University of Minnesota, where I direct the university's neurodevelopmental program in rare disease. Some of what we do in the program involves measuring the impact of rare diseases on the child's abilities, independence, and quality of life. For more than 30 years, our program has been able to characterize the relentless courses of these diseases. Metachromatic leukodystrophy, or MLD, is one of the rare diseases that we examine. We have put stark numbers to the devastating pictures of beautiful children who begin life just like all children should, gaining skills and accumulating new abilities, but then they tragically lose them. We found that children with MLD continually score lower and lower on repeated assessments, including not just IQ scores or intellectual scores, but also scores reflecting abilities in communication and processing, physical coordination and play, independence, and quality of life. Because we know untreated children with MLD will show dropping numbers, we can tell whether treatments work. If a treated child shows better scores than we normally see for untreated children, we know the treatment is working. Here's what we know. For MLD, gene therapy allows for very different scores. They are better, much better. They show the gift of development forward rather than regression backward. We and our colleagues have found a caveat to this, and it's timing. When MLD begins to rob a child of the skills that they rightfully developed, there's no recovering what's been lost. There's no catching back up, and there's no going back to normal. And so there's no time. There's no time to wait for an MLD diagnosis that comes because a child has lost skills. On the other hand, children who are treated before MLD begins chipping away at their skills, they do not lose abilities. Repeated evaluations of these treated children have shown, without exception, scores of clear developmental progress. Not only do their abilities increase, but they have a quality of life that they deserve. They continue to play, they run and jump, they talk and joke and laugh, and they don't lose these skills. How do we know this? Most of these examples are children who were diagnosed by the traumatic sacrifice of an older sibling with MLD. When that sibling lost their skills and was ravaged by MLD, doctors knew to test for it in the younger child because MLD is a genetic disease. So that younger child was treated while MLD was invisible, and it stayed invisible. One child died, and the second one thrived. Right now, these success stories mean that families need to lose a child to save a child. And this story of tragedy and success does not need to be mixed. With newborn screening, all of the affected children have a chance at treatment while MLD is still invisible to keep it invisible. We know newborn screening works. All children deserve a chance at a timely diagnosis, and the state of Minnesota has been a leader in newborn screening, and we can and should continue to lead in saving the lives of these children. Thank you.
So as you heard this morning, these families faced an unimaginable loss of a loved one, and they are here today to share their story in an effort to raise awareness and highlight the importance of adding MLD to Minnesota's newborn screening list. Along with Dr. Isengart, they are committed to helping make sure Minnesota families can get early detection and diagnosis of MLD so they have the best possible chance of a positive outcome. And what we are doing here today is the definition of a grassroots effort. And I think it's pretty darn special for all of you to be here today to share your personal stories. And I applaud you for your efforts and your commitment to help save lives here in Minnesota. And I could not be more proud to be on this journey with you to help get it done. Any questions, Veronica?
Where are the tissues? Where is this bill now?
The bill has been introduced in both the House and the Senate, and it's awaiting a committee hearing in both chambers. And together with my House colleagues, I'm hopeful and optimistic that we can have hearings in both the House and the Senate and hopefully move it along. Yes, ma'am.
Has this bill been introduced in previous sessions, or is this the first time?
This is the first time that it's been introduced. And part of the reason, and our doctor can speak to this, but as I've learned more about newborn screening and rare diseases over the years, and the reason why we did not include MLD when we did the Super GAV Act is because it wasn't ready. The science wasn't there. Accurate testing wasn't there to prevent false positives. So now the testing is there, as well as the treatments are available. And those are my understanding, two of the major things that need to be in place before we add a rare disease to the newborn screening list. And they're both there. It's ready to go, and we're committed to getting this done.
Isn't this something that they can just do? I mean, if it's in the mom, in the dad, or in one or the other, maybe that's to the doctor, wouldn't that be like a red flag, really? All right, we're gonna test him for this, or her for this, just because it's in the parents?
Come on up. A little outside my scope.
It's a good question. They're not looking for it in the parents either. So it's rare, and so the need to look for it really comes with the affected child. So even if parents who are carriers know that they are carriers and go on to have further children, it's not a guarantee the child will have it. It's a 25% chance because it's autosomal recessive. So.
I have a question for you as well. So would it just be a matter of, since newborns get regular screenings, just looking for specific markers? Like, what is this adding on to the process?
It makes it one of the conditions that is routinely screened in sort of the familiar heel prick with the blood spot. So that would be tested in the existing blood, so not additional poking of the baby's heels, and just one of the conditions that's evaluated for.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.